Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 214 of your favourite Formula 1 show. Yes, Knowing Wheel returns for our second podcast of 2025. We're back, obviously, slowly preparing ourselves for the new season. We've got about another month before we've got like the big livery reveal event, whatever that's going to be, and obviously a few other bits and pieces. But as always, I'm joined by JB183. How are we doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Nice and early. It's barely light outside actually, so you might have to excuse a few bad takes because I've only just woken up.
Yeah, I mean, the sun hasn't even come up where I live because Jamie is further north than me. But obviously last year we made a video talking about 5 drivers that were under pressure in Formula 1. And let's be fair, Jamie, we sometimes get things fairly right. We often get things quite wrong in the world of Formula 1. I think that might be one of our best aged ever podcasts we've done.
Potentially, yes, yeah. Because we picked 5 drivers going into 2024 who were under pressure. And of the 5 we picked, 4 of them are now no longer in the sport. So we were correct. And obviously we don't want to celebrate people's failures, but it makes us look good. So we will.
Exactly. So obviously, you know, if you need a crystal ball or something like that, then Jamie and I are your guys ready for 2025. So we've done the same thing again. We've got 5 drivers that we've picked out that we think are under pressure for 2025. Now, as we'll go through the podcast, not all of them we think will be dropped or anything like that. There's a few of them on there that we definitely think could be very quickly, including obviously one obvious one that everyone is talking about already. But also a couple where, you know, maybe their dynamic in Formula 1 could shift and things like that as well. Now, unfortunately, this is still Knowing Wheel, so we did miss out on some big news last week between us recording the episode and the episode going live. So I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping first of all. Jamie, thoughts, feelings on, obviously, Spa being shifted over onto a rotational-based deal?
I feel like they've been talking about this for about 10 years.
It does feel that way.
This could happen. Obviously, it's annoying because Spa is one of those circuits you want on the calendar every year. But would I rather have a confirmed 4 more races at Spa, even if it's 26, 27, 29, and 31? Or would I rather it drop off completely? I think I'd rather have it rotational, obviously, but it's a shame. And I wonder what they'll rotate it with. And to be honest, I don't hate the idea of rotating races. I just don't like the idea that Spa is one of those races.
Spa should never be one of those races. As I keep banging on about on this show, and I know I say it pretty much, it feels like every other week, Spa, Monaco, Silverstone, Monza are the 4 legacy tracks that have been there since day one, that have stood the test of time. They all should always be safe. And admittedly, I think the other 3 are, but Spa should be held in that regard as well, and it's sad that it isn't.
Yeah, it is, and I do wonder what they'll rotate it with. Obviously, Zandvoort have said they're off, but it's not confirmed.
They're gone after this year.
But I wonder if they'll make a bid for those 2 races in what is it, 28 and 30. Yes, so that could happen. Other than that, I would love to see obviously a German Grand Prix come back. In some regard, I would be a little bit surprised. I think they'll have to keep it a European race at that point in the calendar, won't they? So,
well, they could move other stuff around but obviously you got to remember it comes obviously at the moment right before the summer break, so it could be that it either shifts
after Hungary, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be that it shifts to after the summer break with Zandvoort gone. I would like that personally. Spa should always be the first race back after the summer break. But of course, obviously, it depends on Spa. Obviously, is a very, very busy track anyway. It's got a lot of other things to fit onto its schedule. But you say, obviously, it should be a European circuit. Another one I'd like to throw out there that I think could be a worthy replacement would have to be Istanbul. I think that would be really cool.
I just don't think they'll get the fans there, to be honest. Even, like, that's why it dropped off originally. It's a great track, but it's in the middle of nowhere. And
it is, yeah, in the end,
Turkey
it's not really
that
in
bothered
Istanbul.
About F1, really, do they?
I think Turkey is going through other things at the moment, and maybe hosting a Formula 1 race isn't its top priority. But you could say that about a lot of the tracks in the Middle East and things like that as well.
But they're like, I guess Turkey, I was going to say they're tourist destinations, but so is Turkey. So, I don't know. I think if it's wedged between Hungary and Italy, you're looking somewhere European. Could we go to Greece? That'd be quite cool.
Where on earth is there a racetrack in Greece?
I don't know. Let's make one. They've got loads of money, right?
Oh yeah, Greece, known for being famously flush
Anywhere
with
else
cash.
you'd want to go? Like, you could get like a kind of a what's it called, like a Balkan street circuit. That'd be quite cool. But again, they've not got much money.
More street circuits. I want a proper race. It's why I've said the three I'd quite happily
let's
have
go
in.
Hockenheim then.
Well, this is what I was going to say. The three I've said I'd happily have in are Hockenheim, Istanbul, or Mugello. Replace Imola with Mugello, and you're gold. And I hate to say to replace Imola, but it just doesn't work with modern F1 cars.
I mean, arguably neither does Mugello, really. We went there once
Mugello
on the circuit.
was
We had 3 red flags
fantastic.
because the escape roads were awful.
Yeah, there were a couple of issues, but you think with the ground effect cars, Mugello could work quite well. Now.
It would be
it
quite
would,
cool, yeah.
It would just be all about the run into turn one. You'd just be
Yeah.
DRS passing there. But those are the three that I feel will be a worthy replacement.
Portimao, would you go back there?
I would see Portimao back quite happily. I'm thinking as well, Jamie. I don't want to, because we often get accused of British bias on this show. Could we potentially in the future see like a Donington or a Brands Hatch?
I think
Brands Hatch
if there was
probably not.
If there's another race in the UK, it would absolutely
London.
be a street circuit.
It would be a London street race.
Manchester, why not?
A Manchester street race. Oh, that's almost like the Birmingham Super Prix or whatever it was back in the 90s.
It would have to be a London street race, I'd imagine.
It would, yeah.
I don't think Manchester's roads are smooth enough. So
No, probably not.
based on my experience, anyway.
I say you wouldn't want the Gloucestershire street circuit.
No.
Fun fact, Jamie. Actually, my county of Gloucestershire, for those if you didn't know, is the worst in the country for A, the amount of potholes reported, B, the amount of potholes fixed, C, the amount of spending on fixing them, and D, they then also pay out the least insurance claims for potholes in the country.
Is that
It's
just the
incredible.
amount of tractors driving on your roads?
I would assume that doesn't help.
But then,
But they
like,
just-
Oxfordshire must be quite bad for that as well.
They just spend no money ever
Yeah.
on fixing potholes.
Fair.
It's hilarious and annoying.
Well, let's digress from English councils' ability to fix potholes. And yeah, where would you put a race in the comments? If you could, for those 2 races that Spa is now rotating with, where would you want to race? Maybe your hometown.
You're just gonna have people doxing themselves in the comments.
Don't tell us your postcode.
My little village of 600 people. We can have the start finish straight at my house.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go into our 5 drivers under pressure then, Jamie. Like we said, we nailed it last year. We said Kevin Magnussen, he's gone. Zhou Guanyu, he's gone. Logan Sargent, he's gone. Sergio Perez, he's gone. And George Russell, who absolutely proved himself, didn't he? Is looked
Yeah.
like a changed man.
And that's what
ready
we're
for
not trying to claim these drivers will be gone. We're saying if they don't do well, they could be gone, or they could have
Exactly.
their diamond.
Well, like we said,
they're
their
stopping
career trajectories could change rapidly,
Yeah.
couldn't we? But let's get into the obvious one then, Jamie. And this driver could be gone very, very soon, alarmingly. It already feels like. It's Jack Doohan, isn't it? I feel bad
Yeah.
for the guy, but this is just not
I do.
looking good.
Yeah, I feel like when it was around Spa, actually, wasn't it? When he was signing for Alpine, absolutely nobody wanted to drive for them because they were a joke. But then, kind of from that point onwards, they got a bit better. They fixed themselves, and suddenly that seat was a bit more desirable. So he was kind of announced for 2025 because they panicked and thought we're not going to be able to sign anyone here. So why not just promote from within? And then they realised that this lad, Franco Colapinto, who debuted at the very next race, was actually pretty decent. Obviously, Williams already had their drivers lined up for 2025. So, yeah, Colapinto's effectively driving for a seat in 25. And he did very well, briefly, and then started crashing. But he was still showing flashes of pace and very good potential. And I don't know if Alpine even believe in Doohan particularly. And it certainly seems that way because... yeah, the amount of stories and rumours. I mean, we said it months ago now that he had a 5-race contract, supposedly.
Yeah.
Briatore is mental, obviously. I actually saw him in a restaurant in Monaco a few weeks ago.
Quick name drop in there, Jamie. Well done.
Exactly. I didn't say hello because he was eating his meal, so, you know. But he was there. Yeah, Doohan could be gone Is Australia round? It's round 1, isn't it?
Australia's round 1 this year. He could
Okay,
be
so
gone.
He'll get his
Yeah.
home race.
He will hopefully get his home race. This is Flavio Briatore. We're trying to kind of justify the thoughts of a maniac.
Yeah, he's the guy who thought, we haven't won in 2 years, let's fix a race so that we win.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
Yeah, so
Absolutely mental.
would I say that Doohan will be there in Abu Dhabi in 2025, sorry? No. I think Colapinto will be driving that car.
You don't think he's going to make it?
I think Colapinto will be in as soon as they can do it, really. Like, it's like when Red Bull headed into 2016 with Kvyat driving the car. And you knew at the first opportunity they can, they're going to swap Verstappen in there.
Yeah. It's such a weird... Because it kind of felt like when Doohan was obviously announced to Alpine, it felt like, occasionally you see those people that like agree if they're both still single at 40 they'll get married. It kind of feels like that's what Alpine and doing it. Like, well, if we haven't signed anyone else, I suppose in August we'll sign you. And you kind of like
when
go,
De La Rosa drove for McLaren in 2006. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
He's been here so long, we might as well give him a shot because we've got no one else to drive for us.
It's so kind of just... And I think what's obviously even worse was, of course, obviously Doohan was joining that team almost immediately after he signed and sealed and everything else. Flavio Briatore is in. And you kind of go, well, that's great. You've signed up to work with this fairly sensible, admittedly French team, and suddenly now that guy that was here 20 years ago is suddenly back and
He still thinks F1 is like it was in the early 2000s.
I think he thinks it's more like it was in the 90s or late 80s. I mean, it says everything you need to know when Flavio Briatore got his big break into Formula 1 by being part of the mafia in Italy. Like, I'm genuinely not making that up. That's just how wild kind of his story is, like, to get to Formula 1. But again, it's that thing of, he's obviously on a 5-race deal. I reckon that's part of why they chucked him in at Abu Dhabi, because I don't know if you've seen this, Jamie, but apparently it's come out now that Esteban Ocon, over the summer break, was aware, obviously, he was getting dropped by Alpine, and obviously hadn't announced he was going to Haas yet, so went to a test session with Williams at Silverstone, except for he did it in his Alpine press car, so Alpine knew where he'd gone, because obviously they've got it tracked.
Yeah. So to fool them into thinking he was going to Williams?
I don't think it was to fool them into thinking he was going to Williams.
Well, because they already signed two drivers, didn't they?
Well, no, I think it was obviously just to leave Alpine early.
Oh, right, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I do agree that I think that's why they threw Doohan in early, just because clearly they don't
one
want
race
him.
ticked off his deal, yeah.
Yeah, and they've ticked off one race. I think it was lucky that they still beat Haas, to be honest, because I think going into Abu Dhabi with Ocon and Gasly would have been better than going in with just Gasly, effectively, but he pulled through.
Ocon had done next to nothing in the last few rounds.
Like 2 races before he got second place.
Yeah, but apart from that, he'd still been way off Gasly recently.
It is true. But I did feel for Ocon because he was effectively sacked, which doesn't look that good on a resume. But yeah.
Hang on a minute. No, they made a fair deal there, apparently, that worked for both parties.
Yeah,
he wanted to test for Williams post-season. They said only if we could do it in for Abu Dhabi. Sorry, yeah, even.
But yeah, it doesn't look good to just be dropped before the season's end. But that's the way it goes sometimes, and especially when you drive for Alpine, you've kind of signed up for that volatility. And I guess Doohan knew that going in. I mean, no other team was ever going to give him a drive in F1, so yeah, this might be all he gets. And if he does really well, like Colapinto did, then maybe someone else signs him. Or even Alpine might keep him.
Well, he's got to... I think it's going to be more and more now, isn't it? The story of rookies. Or, and I think Colapinto's kind of proved that last year, isn't it? Of, you've got to take that chance that comes your way.
I think that's always been the case in F1. Really.
It has always been the case, but I think even more so now, because Colapinto's proven that F2 isn't kind of a great barometer at the moment. Exactly. I mean, obviously, from Colapinto's side of things as well, why would you go from a tester reserve driver role at Williams to a tester reserve driver role at Alpine if you didn't think, or you hadn't been told that there's more potential for something to happen?
Yeah, you're assessing where you're more likely to get a seat quite soon.
He won't have. Maybe he has gone there because he prefers French food over Oxford food, but it's just he must obviously have an idea or have been told or promised something that he wouldn't have switched otherwise, would he?
Because from a purely organisational point of view, you'd much rather drive for Williams than for Alpine at the moment. James Vowles leading and the trajectory and the organisation.
Alpine scored a lot more points by the end of last year.
They did, but
even if you minus out Brazil, I think they still would have beat Williams in the end, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would have done, I think. But yeah, I think there's definitely a seat on the table for Colapinto. Maybe more than a few races into the season, but yeah. By Abu Dhabi, doing
Colapinto
long forgotten.
Fair enough. It's a sad possible reality for Jack Doohan. We'll stay in Upside Down Land then. We'll move slightly across the ocean. Of course, every year we have to mention the poor schmuck that gets stuck next to Max Verstappen in Red Bull. This time around, of course, it's Liam Lawson who's into the lion's den. And how do we think this is going to work out for him, Jamie? Because it's not worked out well for anybody. Well, admittedly, since the last driver there from Upside Down Land, in Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah. And even then, Verstappen was nothing of the driver he is now when he was teammates with Danny Rick. So, yeah, because 2018, Verstappen was 20 years old. Is that right? 20 or 21?
2021, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an impossible seat to fill unless you are a Leclerc or a Norris. Even that, I mean, you wouldn't want to.
You're going to be the number 2. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think whoever sits next to there, they've just got to taper their expectations. Like, I remember listening to a podcast with Rob Smedley on Beyond the Grid, and when he was Felipe Massa's race engineer at Ferrari, when he first arrived at Ferrari with Michael Schumacher, his teammate, that's prime Michael Schumacher in 2006, or maybe slightly beyond his prime, but still good.
He was over the hill.
And yeah, Massa went in being like, right, what am I going to do to beat this guy? And then he was just over driving and making loads of mistakes. And then Smedley was like, get some perspective. You're like, I don't know how old Massa was, but it is the early 20s. Schumacher's in his mid-30s. You've just got to learn from him. You're not going to beat him this season. Like, just get you what you can, drive normally, and accept that that's going to get you podiums instead of wins. And I think that's kind of what Lawson's got to do. And it's obviously they're F1 drivers. They're not going to be that easily beaten. But I think if Lawson goes in being like, what? How am I going to beat the 4-time world champion who's the best driver on the grid at the moment? And yeah, I just don't think it will happen. I don't think his ceiling is that high, because otherwise it wouldn't have taken him until 22 to get into F1. So
I think that's a bit harsh. He got absolutely shafted by the Red Bull system for a while.
He did, but
he should have been in
through the ranks. Like, Verstappen was years ahead of his prime, ahead of where he should have been. And that's the kind of the telling nature. So is Leclerc. Like, people, like, you can stand out a lot, and that's kind of what Antonelli's done as well.
I think even if you dig deeper though into Lawson's junior career, like Formula 2, he did lose the Mechachrome lottery. Like, he obviously got that new engine. I can't remember where it was towards the end of the year, and suddenly obviously his results massively leaped forward. He did get a bit unlucky with timing, and again, obviously we've mentioned it before, but when you look through his record in every other series he's competed in, he wins. He is able to go somewhere new and push towards the upper ceilings of a car's ability. Now, that obviously is far less likely to happen in Formula 1. In the same speed it's happened everywhere else. But you kind of think, obviously after Perez has floundered, you're kind of looking at it going, well, you need someone that's adaptable. You need someone that's young. You need someone that's going to hopefully be better than Perez, but not good enough as Verstappen.
Yeah.
It's kind of that weird thing again, where it feels like we've said this every single time someone new's gone into that seat of Lawson on paper should be perfect for this.
He should be. And he's very resilient as well.
What's still going wrong?
There's part of me where I kind of think it's just a poison chalice, because
yeah, exactly.
I've seen it on I actually saw it on a YouTube short. I can't remember which podcast it was on, but Alex Albon was on a podcast talking about how he got the Williams seat, and he was basically like showing them the data, because you had Gasly at the first half of 2019. You always had Perez in 2021 when Albon was out of the sport, and he was comparing himself relative to Verstappen versus Gasly and Perez relative to Verstappen. and all of them were at least 0.3 to half a second off on quality pace average, and that's not that much in the grand. Obviously, it's substantial, but it's not like the only problem for Albon was the 2020 Red Bull was way too close to the midfield.
Yeah.
So he just dropped into like 12th, whereas
Well,
for
a
Perez
bit like
in 2021,
Perez did this year. Yeah.
yeah,
Or
whereas
last
Perez in
year.
21, he could be 0.3 off Verstappen and be 4th. So, yeah, I think if Lawson is 0.3 off Verstappen, it kind of depends on how fast the Red Bull is this year. But I think they will taper their expectations. I really hope Lawson does well. I do like the kid.
The kid.
and
He's pretty much our age, isn't he?
He's younger than me, I can say that. And I think he will win a race. Is that bold to say? I think he'll win a race.
It depends what Red Bull are, isn't it, I suppose?
And that would be
cool.
the first teammate to Verstappen. Oh no, Perez won, didn't he? I was going to say since 2018, but no. Yeah, but he always wins when he gets into a car. Though he won his debut race in DTM and F3 and F2. I'm not
I don't
saying
think he won his debut in F2, did he?
He did. He won the sprint in his first, because it was back when they had 2 sprints before a
sprint.
before
Yeah,
a
of course. Yeah, so weird the 2020 schedule, man. 3 races a weekend.
21.
So, was it 21 as well? Was it so weird?
Yeah, because Joe would have won. He had the most features, but Piastri.
Oh, here we go. Sprints. Yeah, there you go. I swear 21 was 2 races again. I swear it was 20 that was 3.
I think Piastri won in 21, didn't he? And that was Piastri definitely won the year there was 2 sprints and a feature.
Did it? Fair enough. Perhaps I'm misremembering it all then.
But yeah. Do you think Lawson? How do you think he'll get on?
I think he'll be there to the end of the year. Yeah, I think he probably will be. But again, it is just that question of how close can you get to Max Verstappen?
The other good thing for Lawson is there isn't a direct rival, because clearly they don't want Yuki Tsunoda, and I think Isaac Hadjar is only there because he had to be, in my mind. He's not like
again, a bit like Doohan, isn't it, with Hadjar?
A bit like Doohan, where they had a seat to fill and they've got a young driver who's pretty much ready, but I don't think he's going to pull up any trees. So Lawson's got that in his hand.
Yeah, I think it's the other thing as well, of course, for Hadjar. If he doesn't swim, and he's not actually on our list here, because again, we can only spend so much time talking about Red Bull Juniors in these podcasts. But I think if Hadjar doesn't swim, it then is more dependent on whether you've got someone in F2. You know, is it going to be an Arvid Lindblad, who, if he absolutely takes to F2 like a duck to water?
Yeah.
And say, for example, Hadjar gets dropped at the halfway stage of the season, and Lindblad comes in and then does really well with VCARB as well, or whatever they're called this year. Is suddenly he then a threat to Liam Lawson down the line? You just don't know, do you? It almost always feels like there's too much going on at Red Bull.
It must be quite a fun program to manage, but I wouldn't want to be that guy. But yeah, I think Lindblad could be the guy, though. He's one of those drivers who's ahead of his age range, and that's always a good start.
Yeah, I think. Well, again, it's just that weird thing, isn't it? At the moment, still, it doesn't feel like F2 is a legitimate kind of junior series. Let's go on to our third one then, Jamie. This is definitely going to be a controversial one, and for anyone that's listened to the show more than once, you'll know it pains me to say this, but we spoke about our tinfoil hats last year. But I'm going to say it: Lewis Hamilton. He needs a big 2025, doesn't he?
He does. He does, and would you say this is his hardest teammate since Fernando Alonso?
Well, he beat Alonso. I mean, I'm gonna absolutely. You're gonna smile at this one, but maybe Rosberg.
I mean, Rosberg won a championship, so as much as you can put it down to whatever, Rosberg was a formidable rival. Hamilton did have the edge of him.
Only 1 year, to be fair. And Rosberg
2014
basically
Rosberg
gave up everything
as well.
I think Hamilton was still adapted. Hamilton did get more unlucky with reliability in 2014 over the course of the season.
But yeah, I think Rosberg really leant forward in 2016. So started trying really hard.
It was a perfect storm.
It was. Yeah. But Leclerc will be Hamilton's toughest test, certainly since then. I think at this point in his career, the pendulum will be more on Lewis Hamilton's teammate than it has been since 2007.
Yeah. But again, it's that weird thing, isn't it, with Lewis, where this genuinely could go completely to one extreme or the other by the end of the year. obviously we've spoken about George Russell, and he did do a fantastic job last year. Like we said, he was under pressure. He did get trounced by Lewis in 2023, and it was kind of a you need to prove yourself with Lewis going that you're ready to lead that team. He's done that. He's been able to prove to Mercedes that he can be their future.
Helped.
Exactly. But obviously for Lewis in 2024, we could be looking back at the end of the year going, I think it's just safe to say he's over the hill now. Or we could be looking back going, clearly 2024 was just a bit more of Mercedes, understandably given preferential treatment to their long-term driver.
Yeah.
And Lewis Hamilton, he's not lost it. 8-time world champion. He's brought Ferrari back. He was exactly what Ferrari needed. It's fantastic news. We can all rejoice. And Jamie's never been on the show again.
Are you claiming a fake 8th in 21 or a real 8th in 2025? Is that?
No, I'm going to claim this as his 11th. I think.
Great.
Are we saying 11th?
Fantastic. No, I do agree with you.
11th.
Obviously he hasn't had the time out that Michael Schumacher had, but this has the potential to be like when Schumacher came to Mercedes in 2010 against Rosberg back then, because everyone in the media, especially the people who didn't know what they were talking about, said
you're thinking of that one BBC interview, aren't you?
Well, was it Eddie Jordan, or who said Schumacher would be world champion in 2010?
No, I can't remember what his name was now.
It was Jonathan Ledgard.
It wasn't it? Terrible commentator.
And everyone
the fact we survived the Ledgard years was incredible.
Yeah. Everyone laughed at David Coulthard when he said that Red Bull and Vettel would win the championship.
Yeah.
Because and he was bang on. So fair play. But yeah, everyone said that Schumacher would pocket Rosberg quite easily. He'd be back to winning races, because obviously he was joining the world champion team in Brawn, even if it had renamed. And that didn't happen. And Rosberg, for 3 years, had Schumacher at an arm's length. And Schumacher had high points, and I think it was a good spell to come back to F1, but he didn't do his legacy any favours, did he?
Or his stats.
Yeah. So, and I don't think I don't think Hamilton will drown against Leclerc, but I think Leclerc will probably beat him, if I'm honest.
You think Leclerc's going to beat him, do you? Interesting.
I do, especially in qualifying. I think points could be quite close.
Yeah, I think I've said it before. It wouldn't surprise me if Leclerc goes like 14 in 10 in qualifying, but Lewis gets ahead of him in points. Oh, you reckon it could be more than that? It's so weird, isn't it, with Lewis with qualifying at the moment? Because he just felt like he couldn't get that Mercedes ever in a window it needed to be in. And then obviously you remember all those rumours that apparently Mercedes have been setting him out like flat tyres and stuff early on in the year. And all that.
Yeah, that Ferrari is Leclerc's team, which helps Leclerc, and he's probably the best qualifier on the grid. So, yeah, I just think Hamilton's in for a shock. But it's still a worthwhile venture. He wasn't going anywhere with Mercedes anymore. So I think he'll have fun for pre-season until Leclerc starts beating him.
Well, I think this is the thing though as well, isn't it? For someone like Lewis Hamilton against someone like Charles Leclerc, is you just know if Hamilton, and obviously it is a big if, but if he can get that momentum going, we spoke so highly of Leclerc last year, and kind of how I'd argue 2024 was maybe his best season.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's got to be right up there, hasn't it? But if Hamilton can get the better of him a little bit, if Leclerc feels like he's having to try and play catch up, I could still see Leclerc kind of unravelling again, like we've seen before.
A little bit. And the other thing is,
he needs to prove still under big pressure he's got what it takes.
And the other thing is, we do say, obviously Leclerc beat Sebastian Vettel quite
very
easily.
Different game.
It was a very different game. But against Sainz, it was in Leclerc's favour, but it was quite close to being equal.
It depends what stat you look at. Yeah. Sainz ran him incredibly close.
Yeah, and if Sainz could run Leclerc close, you could argue that Hamilton will beat him quite easily, because Hamilton is a better driver than Carlos Sainz. Or is he? That's the thing. It's quite hard to assess Sainz these days, isn't it? And it says Hamilton, but yeah, it's one to keep an eye on. I'm very excited about his lineup. Definitely the best lineup on the grid.
Oh, easily.
And yeah, I think it will make 2025 very good. I mean, this time last year, when Hamilton announced he was off, we basically said, I'm very excited for 2025, but I'm not excited for 2024. And our expectations were very subverted, and 24 was great. So what's 25 going to be?
Anyway, let's hope not really boring when Ferrari absolutely run away with it and Lewis gets the jump on Leclerc.
Fantastic.
You mentioned Carlos Sainz there, Jamie. He's going to segue us nicely into our next driver because up in number 4, we are going down to Williams. We're talking about Alexander Albon, isn't it? Because obviously, well, we've mentioned him a couple of times already in this show. But he has to prove this year, when he hasn't got a terrible teammate, of his ability in Formula 1.
Yeah, because even the last time we could get a fair reflection of Albon's ability was probably against Verstappen in 2020, and that's really harsh on him, because since then, he's gone up against Nicholas Latifi, Logan Sargent, and a short spell against Franco Colapinto.
Franco Crashapinto.
And to be honest, Colapinto ran him a lot closer than a lot of people thought he would. Obviously, he pocketed Latifi and Sargent very easily because they're not very good. I'll put that out there. And yeah, last time he drove against a competent teammate, he drowned. And Sainz is definitely good. Obviously, he's no Verstappen, but 2020 Verstappen was there, but he wasn't like the relentless world champion Verstappen that we see now.
He wasn't as well-rounded, yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a challenge for Albon. I think when they announced they were signing Sainz, he was probably a bit worried. And yeah, I think this has potential to be very equal, but it also has potential to be super one-sided to Carlos Sainz.
Well, this is the weird thing, because you've said I could see it being equal, but I could also see it swinging massively either direction. I can suddenly see it now being that, you know, if, for example, Albon comfortably got the better one, like he's usually got a couple of tenths on him and things like that, you're kind of going, how come Leclerc and Sainz was such a fair matchup, but suddenly Albon is, you know, getting the edge on him week in, week out?
That's why I think it won't happen like that, because I do rate Carlos Sainz. I think he's very unfortunate to lose his Ferrari seat. He's a multiple race winner, multiple pole sitter, and I think at best for Albon, it will be quite equal because he knows the team and he knows how to drive a rubbish car. I think Carlos Sainz, I think it's probably like, you remember at 2023 Haas, where at the very start, Hulkenberg and Magnussen were pretty even. And then by midpoint in the season, Hulkenberg was trouncing Magnussen, and it stayed like that for the rest of their time. I think.
I know, at the end of 2024, I knew you were going to say this. Magnussen, once they finally fixed the brakes, he was right there with Hulkenberg, if not better, in the last few races together.
It wasn't better. He had Mexico.
Was better.
He was good in Mexico, and that was it.
He was better towards the end of the year. He was ill in
race in Brazil.
Yeah, because he was ill. It's not his fault.
No, he still was classified equally as much as Hulkenberg.
I think he beat Hulkenberg, didn't he? He didn't get disqualified.
He didn't get disqualified. Yes, but I think Sainz will. By the end of the season, he'll have put Albon an arm's length.
Yeah,
if you ask me.
Fair enough. Well, let's go to our final driver then, Jamie. This is again going to be a fun, controversial one. And
people just think we don't like this driver very much.
Exactly. we both. I think we don't dislike him, but we're not like huge fans of him, are we?
No.
We mentioned George Russell last year about how he needed to prove himself as a number one driver. Simply put, he's got to do that again, hasn't he? He got the better of Lewis last year, but of course that's come with all these caveats that we'll always talk about. He cannot let Kimi Antonelli come in at 17 or 18 years old and start ruling the roost.
Yeah, exactly that. And George Russell, he has, I think, he's not done himself any favours. From Vegas onwards, he was given it massive talk that he's basically ready to win a world championship. With the way that he was, I don't think
that's unfair.
I don't think it's unfair, but he's got to put his money where his mouth is now. And
if he's given a car,
I don't think he will win. But he's got to prove that. He's got to prove that statement, because say he loses to Antonelli, you're like, well, you're a mug. So,
well, yeah,
because after Vegas, he was like, there's no way Verstappen should have had it this easy. McLaren are clowns. I could win a championship. And then in Abu Dhabi, he obviously went up against Verstappen and was like throwing his toys everywhere. So.
Yeah, I don't think he was. I think that's an unfair.
Handbags. I think they both had points, but it was just done in such a terrible way. But it was very entertaining.
I rate Russell genuinely is one of the. It's one of those weird things where I think Leclerc knows how to handle Max on the road. Lewis knows how to be quicker than Max. George knows how to get to him. George knows how to get him psychologically, and Lando knows how to stay friends with him for some reason. I don't quite get how that's helping him out, but there we are. I think George Russell,
when his cars come to be better, but he had that this year and still didn't win.
I think George Russell he knows how to play Max. I mean, he can play Max Verstappen against himself. I genuinely believe
he can. And he does see that Max is probably weakest when he's losing his head.
Exactly. If you can, the clue's in the name, Jamie. If you can rustle his feathers, he's
exactly.
Golden.
Exactly. And yeah, the thing is, you can do all this stuff and you can make all these claims towards season's end when you've not had a very good car, but you've got a rookie teammate coming in. You've got to pocket him quite easily.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you're just like, everyone just looks at him super unseriously because he's just, what are you doing, making all these claims and losing to an 18-year-old who's had 3 years of single seaters. So yeah, I think Russell will beat him. To be honest, the amount of dross that has gone from the grid this year, we were kind of scraping the barrel looking for drivers under pressure. So I think Russell will be fine. But if he does lose to Antonelli somehow, then yeah, he's massively under pressure.
And I think the thing is, it's not so much that he's under pressure of losing his seat, but he worked so hard to make sure that he got that kind of number one status within Mercedes last year. He cannot lose that immediately, because if Merc either somehow this year come back with a good car, or ready for 2026 have got a car that can deliver, he needs to be in a position there where he has got full team support behind him to try and get on at Max. On the other hand, I really want to see Antonelli win one of the first 3 races to beat Max's record for youngest ever winner. That would be insane.
Has he only got 3 races to do that?
He's only got 3 races to do it, yeah.
So what we're saying, I've claimed Lawson will win his first race. He'll claim Antonelli to win one of the first 3. That would be a nice start to the season.
That would be insane, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If it's all the new drivers to new teams that win races, then I'll take Lewis winning the world title. Thank you.
Great.
But yeah, for Russell, like we said, it's not so much. He's obviously good enough Formula One and everything else, but it is just about It's about proving what you worked hard for last year. You can keep with, and let's be fair, Jamie, as well. Just to keep talking about George Russell, how hilarious is it that obviously now Hamilton's gone, Mercedes have lost their Tommy Hilfiger sponsorship, so he's now having to go around in an Adidas tracksuit.
I love it.
Like, it's so un-George Russell.
Mercedes is gone.
Oh man, so funny.
He'll get a Toy Story sponsorship probably because
that'd be great. That would be great.
Very good. Get him a cowboy hat and some plastic boots.
Daniel Ricciardo, you're back already. Man, have we got anything else to add?
Anything else?
Has anything been announced this morning? Probably not. I hope not.
Probably not.
I mean, something will be by the time this podcast goes out, so we'll try and be careful with that as well. But there we are then. Let us know your drivers that you think are under pressure as we head into the all-new season. Apparently, F1 Sim Racing is back, Jamie. Are you excited for that?
F1 Sim Racing? So F1 Esports, is that?
F1 Esports, but it's not called F1 Esports anymore.
Why?
I don't know.
I did some work for them a few years ago, so I like F1 Esports.
Fair enough. Who do you think is going to win it this year? I won't watch it.
I think you might win.
I'm going to win it. Fair enough.
You entered into a qualifier once and got really unlucky and still finished 4th or something. Was that you?
Yeah,
you didn't finish 4th, did you?
No, I think I came 7th in the end in my race, which despite the fact I lost the wing twice.
You were going to cry. It was so
funny.
Oh
man, it was so gutting. It's because my pedals didn't work. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
Fun times were had. But there we go. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure you leave a like. Get yourself subscribed. Jamie and I'll be back hopefully next week.
Yeah.
I might be very sleep deprived because I'm doing Daytona 24 this weekend.
Well, we could record it live from Daytona.
Live from Daytona. You get iRacing, sir, and we'll do it.